بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله والصلاة والسلام على رسول الله. We continue reading from the 40 principles of the religion, 40 fundamentals of the religion, الأربعين في أصول الدين by Imam Al-Ghazali رحمه الله ونفعنا بعلم في الدارين آمين آمين آمين. He said, the reality of high status in respect of blame and praise. Perhaps you say, if it is the case that seeking high status is a consequence of reason, is from the peculiarities of the soul, the spirit, and corresponds to lordly matters, then why is it blameworthy? Know that seeking truly high status is praiseworthy, not blameworthy. Truly high status. Closeness to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is something sought by all, and it is surely high status and perfection. It is a dignity with no baseness in it, richness with no poverty beside it, perpetuity with no end after it, and a pleasure that has no filth. A pleasure that has no filth, a pleasure that nothing disturbs this pleasure, nothing spoils this, nothing stains, nothing. Seeking that is praiseworthy. The only blameworthy thing is seeking an imagined perfection rather than the real thing. Real perfection derives from knowledge, freedom, and power, which are for a person to not be controlled by another. The reality of power is inconceivable for the slave, for his power is only in wealth and status, which are imaginary perfections. They are ephemeral matters that do not remain. And there is no good in what does not remain. Rather, it is said, this is a verse of poetry from Al-Mutanabbi. The word sorrow to me is a happiness that I'm certain will go away. أشد الغم عندي في سرور تيقن عنه صاحبه انتقاله. It's either or. I'm certain will go away. The happiness will go away. You will go away. Either or. It's temporary. And in fact, everything is temporary in this world. Every single thing. The news is that this life is temporary. The news is that all 8 billion people on earth will one day die. The news is that there is an end to this universe, the way we know it. Richness or poverty, both are temporary. I'm talking about in this life. Health and disease are temporary. It doesn't mean that you not improve your that you don't seek medicine if you are sick. It doesn't mean that you don't work if you are poor. It doesn't mean that. No. But if you attach that attribute that every single thing is temporary, it's going to be consumed. It's not going to be there. It's not going to stay. Ask an old person, uh, what is it? What are the most important things? They might say health. They might say health because being old is almost it's inevitable that you'll get sick, you'll get weak, your senses might become weak. So even at the moment of happiness, you have ascertained that it's going to be taken away. You will be taken away from it. How could this not be the case when this ephemeral power, quickly severed by death and remaining for just a moment, is not pure from crime? Someone imagines it to be perfection and then it disappears. Rather, they are multiplied many times over without limit. This is real knowledge of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala's essence, attributes, and actions. And that is the knowledge of all things in existence. For there is nothing in existence except Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and His actions. Nothing real in existence. Imam Al-Ghazali does not say that we are not real, but there are different realities. However, one may look at them from a perspective other than them being Allah's actions, subhanahu wa ta'ala. Like the one who looks at anatomy for the sake of medicine, or the one who looks at the position of the world in order to know what the stars indicate. This is of no value. So one looks at the anatomy for the sake of medicine أو ينظر في هيئة العالم لمعرفة الاستدلال بأحكام النجوم فهذا لا قدر له. Also from real perfection, which is the cutting off of your relationship with all connections to the world. Actually, from everything that separates you or separates from you at death, and limiting your attention to what inevitably stays with you, which is Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. As Allah revealed to Dawood, Sayyidina Dawood alayhi salam, Prophet David, King David, Prophet and King David. O Dawood, I am your inevitable end. So cling to the inevitable. It's mentioning Dawood, Sayyidina Dawood alayhi salam, in the book of Psalms, as it is today. 137, 9. So chapter 137, verse 9, in the book of Psalms. It does talk about it talks about really killing the children of the enemy. And I thought to myself, by tossing the babies on the rocks. And I think it's really blasphemous to attribute anything like this to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. That cannot be the case. It cannot be the case. And it's not the only verse in the Old Testament that really includes babies. There are several verses that include the elderly, the women, the children, the animals. I am at a loss thinking about how could it be the case. It cannot be a revelation. Absolutely not. Knowledge and freedom are among the righteous deeds that remain, and they are both real perfections. Wealth and children are the worldly life's adornment, and they are both imagined perfections. The upside down people, al-mankusun, are those who have reversed reality. They turn away from seeking real perfection and are preoccupied with seeking imaginary perfection. They are the ones who burn with the fire of sorrow at death, for they witness that they have lost both the world and the afterlife. As for the afterlife, they lost it because they never sought it and never attained the causes of happiness therein, whether knowledge or freedom. As for the world, they lost it because it called them and turned to their enemies, who are their inheritors, because they depart and they leave this dunya. Palaces or shacks, fat bank accounts or pennies, whatever is the case, you just leave it to those behind you. You should have used it to do something good. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala forgive us. Do not think that knowledge and faith depart from you at death. Death does not eradicate knowledge in the first place, nor is death non existence, in which case you might believe that when you die, both you and your attributes are annihilated. Rather, the meaning of death is the cutting off of the soul's relationship with the body until it is returned to it. When the body is stripped, it is in the same state of knowledge and ignorance that it was in before death. To understand this would take time, and behind it are secrets, the unveiling of which this book cannot accommodate. Quelling love of status from the heart. في بيان علاج داء الجاه. If you know the reality and essence of status, and that it is an imaginary perfection, then you know that the way to treat it is in quelling the love of it from the heart. After all, you know that if the people of the earth prostrate to you, for example, it would be but a short while before there was no one prostrating and no one prostrated to. How could this not be the case when time gives of itself stingily? Limited time. And some people insist on doing horrible things. How could you be pleased to abandon an everlasting dominion with ever high and far reaching status with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and His angels in exchange for your petty, low life status that only excites fools who neither benefit nor harm you, and who have no control over life, death, resurrection, provision, or time? Of course, controlling hearts is like controlling full entities, which you have need of to a small extent, in order to guard yourself from oppression, enmity, and whatever disturbs you in terms of your health and free time, from which you derive support for your religion. Seeking the small amount is permissible, on condition that it is strictly the necessary amount, as is the in the case of wealth, that you do not try to earn it through ostentatious worship, because that is prohibited and shall be discussed later, and that you do not try to earn it through being phony, by displaying a quality that you do not really have within you. For there is no difference between controlling hearts with phoniness and controlling wealth. If you attain status through its proper way and limit yourself to an amount impervious to corruption, then well being will be easy for you. You will nevertheless be in grave peril, more dangerous than the peril of wealth. This is because a small amount of status calls to having more of it, for indeed it is more pleasurable than wealth. People do spend on their political election campaigns. They spend lots of money. Why? Because it's there's certain self gratification and status. You just pay the wealth, and ultimately, if you have plenty of wealth, like certain presidents in the West who are billionaires, why did they want to become presidents? For the public good? I doubt it. For something moral? Absolutely not. It is more pleasurable than wealth. For this reason, a person's religion is not safe, except for a low profile, anonymous person who is unknown, as you have understood from the reports. Here, it's a reference to hadith of narrated in Muslim. It was compiled by Muslim in the Compendia of Hadith, and it was narrated by the companion Sa'ad bin Abi Waqqas radiallahu anhu. إن الله يحب العبد التقي الغني الخفي, that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala loves the servant, the slave, who is pious, who is rich, not rich. Don't you ever think about money. Rich at heart. Al-Khafi, incognito, is not known to people. Like you would probably pass by and you think that, who is this person? And you might belittle the person. You shouldn't belittle anyone, because you don't know the end of people in the hereafter, whether they might make it to paradise and you don't, or they make it to higher places and you don't in paradise. Treating the love of praise which motivates seeking status. Among the motivations for seeking status is the love of praise. Indeed, the human being takes pleasure in it from three aspects. The first of them is that it gives him the feeling of being perfect, and feeling this perfection is delightful because perfection is one of the divine attributes. The second is that it gives a person the feeling of possessing the heart of the one who praises him, occupying a position of status with him, and him being subjugated for his purposes. The third is that it gives a person the feeling that one praising him listens whenever he is praised, thus increasing his status. For this reason, if praise comes from a person who is insightful and respectful of the attributes of perfection, has great status and influence himself, and does this in front of a group of people, the pleasure of praise is multiplied. The pleasure of the first aspect sees if the praise comes from other than the people of insight, then it certainly does not make a person feel perfection. The second sees if it comes from a low life who has no influence, for possessing hearts is not possible for him. The third sees if a person is praised in seclusion, not in a group, unless he expects that he may be praised in a group as well. As for censure, it is certainly loathsome. Love of praise and loathing censure has destroyed most of the creation and led them to ostentation and various types of disobedience. The treatment for this is for a person to reflect on the first pleasure. If he is praised because of abundant wealth and status, then he should know that it is an imaginary perfection, and the cause of real perfection being lost. Hence, it is more appropriate that he be saddened because of it, rather than rejoicing because of it. If he is praised for an abundance of knowledge and piety, then his joy should be for the existence of these attributes and Allah's subhanahu wa ta'ala's knowledge of them, not for someone else's mentioning of them. He should thank Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala for them and not thank other than him. This is if he is truly characterized by them. If he is not characterized as such, then his joy over praise is foolishness. It is like the joy of someone who is praised by another who says, "The fragrance from your bowels is wonderful." Yet the one who is praised knows the filth and horrible stench in his bowels. Well, if you turn to CNN website today, you'll find a title of news. It's there. I did not really read it, but one flight was postponed, cancelled practically, because someone defecated in the airplane. So that's a whole flight being stopped by something that will never have a good fragrance. So much so for the human being who has been described as carrying this stuff within him all the time. Why think of himself as being above others, above other human beings, which would include biases, personal, group, and general biases, which would include phobias, which would include maltreatment, which could lead ultimately to genocide, especially when you dehumanize the other. It's a very sad state of being, very sad state. This is the state of the person who rejoices over being praised for piety, asceticism, and knowledge, while he knows that within himself he is devoid of them. As for the second and third pleasure, which is the pleasure of status, with the one who praises and others, its treatment is what we have mentioned in regards to the love of status. Inshallah, tomorrow we'll deal with the seventh principle, love of the world, حب الدنيا. سبحانك اللهم وبحمدك نشهد أن لا إله إلا أنت نستغفرك ونتوب إليك. السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته.